we are in. First game is going to be with Cyberquad. It's going to be a game in the Collins word list, and I'll be going first. Okay, here, kind of thinking, first of all, whether I will have something good that's about 5 tiles in length. If not, I will probably just go something very... Oh, it's not my turn, actually. Oh, yeah, no, I read the clock wrong completely. Well, okay, that's a bad start. Just reading the wrong line on the clock. That's okay. In that case, we can think about what I can do. I was already thinking ahead to, you know, if we had something like a B on the board, we'd have things like bar rooms. But unfortunately, nothing quite so convenient. Although the rooms idea is something that has some potential. So close to something like restroom. Okay, probably just going to go for the same kind of idea, just to manage the rack, perhaps. Let me see. I really want to double the R's. Also, though, thinking about whether we can take anything through the T. Yeah, let's just go with that. Okay, this has a bit of potential. Is going to be things like ordinals through an I, ladrones through an E, if we hadn't blocked our own E. Lardons, I think, is actually good. I'm not totally sure, though. I'll think about it. It's ladrones if you add the E. I think this is correct. So we'll see if we have somewhere to go for that. I'm also currently seeing if there's anything that could potentially take me through the A. So, just going to wait for our turn to see how that's going to go. So yeah, might as well write down some of those ideas. Ordinals, ladrones, lardons. Yeah, doubling the A through this lane, I can't quite see anything yet. And of course this raises the question of where I would play lardons even if it does go down. Okay, well, we can just go with the original ordinals idea. That does motivate me to think briefly about whether there would be an anagram of ordinals that would be able to hit both. So, let me just think about that quickly. So currently I'm looking at this, but if I can have something that has the I in just a slightly higher position, I hit both and also avoid the issue with the A potentially next to the triple word score. Don't want to spend too long on this one though. We might look at it afterwards to see if there's anything that we might have missed. Okay, this one here. Always very tempted to look at the out start. We have a was here, suggesting that my opponent is actually extremely consonant heavy. Let me just think about this for a moment. Also looking at potential ideas to take the Z down here, but the S is not actually that flexible. Out of my tiles, it's only going to take... Oh, it's going to take the T as well. and the O, but I don't think that's actually going to be anything useful here. So close to having a second O for like wazoos or something. Do I like programming? Yes and no. I like certain elements of it. No, there are a lot of things I do enjoy about that, and just kind of programmatic thinking in general. I'm trying to remember if something like this takes like a T in front or something. I'm not sure. Also currently trying to do something through the R. I don't think that gives me anything, though. Anyway, let's not spend too long on this one. Let me just maybe go... Yeah, just like this. Ugh, not a great play. It is going to get me something fairly decent, though. This... If we have an N to play through, we have neonates. If we have a couple of other letters to play through, I think this can get me somewhere. A little bit vowel heavy, of course. Okay. I should actually think about whether I would have anything through this R here. So the 8 rack would be something like this. Feels like that's something I should be able to recognize immediately in terms of whether or not that's something. But I don't know, maybe there isn't anything. But we'll think about that anyway, in case there's some kind of long shot through the R. Other than that, I'll probably be just trying to dump from here, dump some vowels perhaps. Just a little bit too heavy on everything. Like, this only gives me about 10 points, not great. We have some way to maybe create a lane up here. That's not too bad an idea, actually. Or something like this, in terms of just creating some space for myself. Okay, maybe that's not great. This would be something like beatings through R. Yeah, not playing this one very well. And some of the call-in 3s throws me off quite a bit sometimes. I believe this does take a G in front, though, if we wanted to dump anything up here. Begin, or kind of dangles a lot. Oh, no, sorry. Not an N. That doesn't work. Yeah. Not great either way. Should think about whether there's anything down here. The space is getting a little bit constricted all over. So let's just try to make some space, maybe. Blocking my own lane there. This is not a very good demonstration of how to play this game so far. I didn't think I had anything close to protrude, Mamuga. And Mamuga... Oh, I see. You wanted to share a game that Nintendo will release related to programming. I saw some kind of new Nintendo trailer for some kind of game maker software get posted, but I hadn't actually looked into it myself yet. So if you have anything to share about that, you're quite welcome to. Just watch it turn out that something like Bangis was actually good, but didn't think so. Still thinking about this. I probably should have kept O's for Wazoos or something. Not that it's a particularly good idea. I really do need to get out of this spot that I have been in. Let's see if there's something I can do with the Y's here. Like if there's something down here, or... I don't know about dangling the A like that. What's that, only 19 points? Tough board. Mostly of my own making, I think, in terms of how bad this turned out to be. But... yeah, burning way too much time as well. Maybe just dump the A's. Try to make some space so you can do something down here. Just been making a lot of nonsense plays so far too. Try to get ourselves in a slightly better position. Yeah, I have not been too happy with how I've actually been playing this so far, but still the whole time thinking about this spot here, whether there's something we can do, but Velt's really closed off a lot of possibilities. The V, for those of you new to this, doesn't take any two-letter words, so you can't just do it play directly going this way. And so this position down here has largely been locked down. And yeah, momentarily saying that the two-letter words, and to some extent the three-letter words, aren't too hard to learn in terms of being worthwhile for how much power they give you, in terms of just how much more flexible your positioning is when you do learn some of that basic stuff. It doesn't take too long to learn kind of a very efficient set of words that will get you fairly big returns quickly. That's how I would put it. And hey, Mang, welcome. I guess the Define bot wasn't quite positioned to take care of both what and up at the same time. It's not too bad an idea to just dangle the B up there. It's not actually that much of a threat. Here, though, I still have massive problems with just not having lanes to play through. Except for this, perhaps. But, yeah, unfortunately, nothing that's going to quite to go there. So let's just go here. And now we have to deal with the C's and V's and so on, so still in a tough spot. Might just go with Vic or something down here. Dangle my own. Yes, actually first choice would be something like Vibe up here. I think that's easily first choice on this turn. And is it going to remain open? It is going to remain open. Don't really know what goes in front of ITA except maybe the P. So that's going to get closed off quickly. I'm still quite a ways behind, within about 40 points, but after having taken my turn, so not a good situation. Okay, so I'm now in quite a bit of trouble when it comes to vowels. You can see from the pool, you have 21 vowels and 14 consonants in the bag plus my opponent's rack combined, so he's potentially very vowel heavy, given that I've drawn pretty much in the opposite direction. It does create some problems for me in the near term, though, in terms of whether I'm actually able to play. Trying to look at this position still to see if maybe there's something I can do to, you know, just get out of here somewhat. And this is still the lane with highest potential. Let's see. I do have an S hook for this position here, but I don't think I actually have much I can use it with just yet. So can I actually play the J anywhere decent this turn? I might not be able to. Oh, you know what? If I draw an E, then the J here is going to land a massive bomb. So 6 E's in a bag. Let's just try to play off a whole bunch of stuff and try to draw that E. Actually, no, I should have thought that through. I shouldn't have spent the T because I need the T to use that. Except O also works because of OR. So now if I do something here like a JO, that's 57 points. I probably don't want to dump the E on top of that because of the way that this would parallel down, but that puts me in a much better position. Also because I have the S to make use of the S lane next to OR as a follow-up, if that's still available, so we'll see, because, I mean, obviously we have the C there as well. There is a C in the pool. But looking at my opponent's side, he's unlikely to hit this spot with a similar idea, except with the C. It is, however, the likeliest bingo lane right now, so there's a chance that it's going to get killed off by some big play. But if the J play remains available, that's going to be a huge boost to me all of a sudden. And exactly the kind of thing I need in order to get back to a game where, frankly, things had not been going great. So we'll just see if we can make anything happen here. May or may not be the case, but yeah, it felt like I was flailing for a lot of the early game. Here, this lane here is susceptible to something with the F, but I don't have much that's particularly great, except maybe like foci or something, but that still wouldn't give me much to work with in terms of the J. The thing about the J is that you do need to score well with it and score well with it fairly quickly. You don't want it to be hanging around your rack for too long because it's just too inflexible. Interesting thing to keep in mind is that I have the S for plays down here, except I don't think... Oh, great. It's available. Let me take a look at this first of all, because I don't know if this is perhaps opening something with high potential. But no, let's just take the play. This is close to something. There's if you had an AE ending, I think it's actually CIAE here would be the word. It's one of those you just learn from experience after missing it a lot. A little bit vowel heavy now, but we can do something like face. I know that DEF doesn't take an S on the end in the NWL lexicon, but I don't know about call-ins. It does, of course, take some other things like the I and the T. Okay, this is high probability call-ins only, so yeah, it's good. Probably just going to go something like farce here for the 36. I'm still way behind. I don't know, keeping 2 vowels and an S when we have some potential vowel issues with the bag. I don't know if I like that, but putting the F up there would leave this lane open and the S lane open. So I think maybe this is actually the best thing to do, except of course for the fact that I am vowel heavy. Like if I could spend 3 vowels with the F up in the top spot, then I'm in a much better spot, but I don't actually think I can. This is also going to be the last A. So, as the case A, as they say in Scrabble lingo, maybe I shouldn't spend it so casually, but we have S hook here. We'll kind of dangle an S hook here. There are 2 S's and a blank in a pool, so my opponent might take one of them. But then we have a lane up here, and I'm behind, so I really do need everything open if I can. I'm just worried about, as you can see, a very vowel-heavy draw. With 8 tiles in a bag, I will not be able to exchange out of this. So, yeah, there we go. We're chiefed. I'm going to challenge that just to be sure, because this is a game-losing situation anyway if I don't. It is gone. Okay, so opponent is holding. We know exactly what he's holding, so we know what's exactly in the bag. So let's see the tool here. Okay, that's a big game-changing moment in a way. He has with the blank because of the blank there. Blank I, E, F, D. So, currently the bag is holding EILLSSUY. And of course I have to think about whether my opponent will see something else that is actually in that rack. So not too fond of the U and the Y in there, but if we find some way to salvage this situation, it would make sense here to exchange, actually. Because assuming that my opponent doesn't see the bingo in this rack, what he's got C, D, E, E, F, I blank. And tactics is 5-point challenge. I mean, in a game-losing situation like this, 100% I'm going to check that. Which I have to remind myself to do when it comes to 5-point challenge, because I'm still not really in that habit. So yeah, opponent holding this. We have 8 tiles in a bag, we know exactly what they are. I'm low on time, so I have to figure out what I'm drawing towards. I definitely want to dump the U. Probably going to keep MIES and get rid of U, EI. And even so, you have the second I in there. I have to think about what I'm trying to draw towards, because the thing is, I have to see what kind of potential 8s are in there, and I don't necessarily see them, even if I do draw decently. Which is the issue here, that even changing into the bag might not solve my problem. Might even dump both I's then. Although, yeah, we have 3 vowels in a bag though. The vowels are going to duplicate if I draw them, so I have to think about what I could potentially draw into. Or, you know what? Never mind that. If I don't think my opponent is going to find a bingo, I need to just score. Unless there is something that's going to end in E here that gives my opponent the hook. Yeah, still just trying to look at my opponent's wreck there. I think this might actually be the right play, because I need to outscore right now, and he's holding the blank anyway. It's just that this looks terrible, but I think it might actually be right. Because otherwise he's going to grab the spot, right, with the F. Oh, and he sees it. Okay. I should have looked harder for something like that. Okay, so we just straight up lose. There's no blocking that anyway. Given that edifice would also go here, and... Never mind that. If I had seen that my opponent would have the bingo, then I would have needed to draw towards one on my own. But even so, I think that's a game-losing situation. So, yeah, that's how that one goes. Should we just, I don't know, too many vowels all over the place. Let me see if I can do anything more interesting than that. Trying to see if my opponent actually is able to go out anywhere. If yes, then it would make sense for me to just tag the S here for a bit extra. If no, then I definitely want to keep it. Let's just keep it. This is a lost game anyways. This is just playing for the sake of making decent plays on a close board, so... So yeah, I don't know with this bag what I should have been drawing towards in a pool. I think maybe exchange would have been the right place there. Would have been the right play, rather, but what is my objective? Am I drawing towards something like sillies, or... I guess that's the only one I can really see that would have been a possibility. But we'd have to do some anagramming with the pool to see if I should have, you know, kept the M out of the challenge or anything like that. This, yeah, I mean, my opponent's going to go out. Let's just grab some points and lose. Okay, well, we won the one challenge at least, so, you know, that's a partial moral victory in some ways. And, we might as well look this over then, quickly, just to see how it goes. But, I mean, obviously that could have gone quite a bit better, so let's just go back over it, take a look. Feels like I missed a lot of stuff, especially early on. I didn't feel like I was playing the early part of the game well at all, so... Kind of interesting to dump a lot of that stuff so early on my opponent's side and keep the H instead of trying to do any kind of bingo build. Okay, I did miss something here. Mortars with an S. This early on, I should let myself spend the S for open positions like that. A lot more than I do. Yeah, I guess I just played MOR there, and maybe playing off the second O is preferred, especially a little more flexibility with lanes, perhaps. Okay, working, yeah, pretty clearly going to go in that position. I did see Lardons. I didn't see that set of parallels. I wasn't looking at that very carefully, so I saw Ordinals, and Ordinals actually turned out to be the worst scoring choice here, so... Look at this 9 Moorlands. Don't know that I necessarily would have gone for that position, but that would have been, I think, the fanciest of the plays that would be available. Get Norlands. Nah, I don't like that position. Moorlands, wow. Yeah, so some of this stuff looks fancy. Lardons and Ladrons. I don't think I knew that, actually. Thought it was probably... Oh yeah, no, they do go together as a set. Because Ladrons is, I think, the same thing as Ladrones. Exactly. With a T as well. And yeah, definitely a very heavy rack for my opponent. To the extent that playing off the V is actually technically better if you ignore the fact that that would be susceptible to the S hook. I think this is probably not bad if he just wants to keep up in points. But you can see that none of these are evaluated much higher than an exchange, simply because the leave is awful. But if he doesn't know what's going on here at this point, I think that might be right. Outspans. Okay, I was trying to look for something using OUT. I just didn't see outspan. I was thinking... I saw something like outsnap, and I thought, no, that's not true. You have to snap out of it. I did not think about outspans, and that's just anagram error for me. I just barely missed over. I feel like that should have been an easy spot for me, given that I was looking at the correct prefix already. Well, here's a Collins dump for you, TWP. As you can see, my opponent is still very much stuck on consonants. Wait a minute, I said I would play neonates through an N if it came down, and the N came down, and I don't know why I didn't play that. Because I remember even saying that turn that, oh, it fits through the N, and let's just play it. So I have no idea how I managed to miss that. Given that I was thinking about it even before Prawn came down, and then Prawn came down and I just didn't look at the end position. So that was an absolute disaster. So yeah, no, that's just kind of a really bad turn, in that, you know, I missed the bingo that I had kind of scouted out in advance. I probably should have just been using the notepad to keep some of this stuff in mind. Because I cannot believe I missed that after actively considering it. That's okay, that's why we lose. That's not the only reason we lose, but that's often why we lose. Look at this neat little parallel here. Allay, I believe that's Collins only. I don't remember seeing that A hook in front of lay in NWL, but that's a good one to know, for sure. Does it take an S? Yes, it does. It takes the ing, etc. Why are there so many ways to lose? Because this is a zero-sum game and there are an equivalent number of ways to win. Theoretically, I think. Lots of stuff he can do with the X there. Lots of choices. Yeah, Lax, I guess, continues to just close it off. It's kind of funny because I think Lax doesn't actually close off Wazoos if you still want to go for Wazoos with 2 of 3 remaining O's in a pool. Bye, I was actually pretty happy with, despite the lack of lanes. And yeah, Vibe is pretty much correct here. What was my opponent holding here? Yeah, he probably doesn't want to give me too much of a shot at that lane, so he just wants to close it up with DI. ITA. I'm trying to think about what would go in front of that in Collins. I saw the P hook. There's a V hook, I guess, and D is good in both lexicons, so nothing I can do there. I think this is very clearly the right way to go. Good thing he didn't try anything like that. That would have killed the J idea. But as you can see, you know, the plays that the analyzer here is seeing are mostly considering that same position. It is by far the biggest hotspot on the board at this moment, and very lucky for me that I saw that a turn in advance here and managed to play towards it. J. Gifts. Didn't think about that. That would have been fine too, I think, if I were trying to draw deeply into the bag to try to get some kind of big J play. EH, I think, only takes the S in Collins, if I'm correct. Yeah. I was trying to remember that, if this hook actually works. And I thought it was Collins only. And that's just the kind of thing that we have to remember. But yeah, I just didn't think about gifts. Why didn't I think about gifts? Probably because of the fact that it starts with 2 Collins 3s that are still a little bit hard to see. Like DE, I can see most of the time. LIG, I find I still have a bit of trouble with. Oh, it must be a Scottish thing. I guess it doesn't explicitly say so, but it certainly sounds like it. And yeah, as you can see, some interesting fits if my opponent just keeps wanting to score, but the fact that the hotspot is open makes it clearly the biggest play there. You're pretty much never going to miss with this rack if you know your Collins words. I can see why he wouldn't want to go there, although, oh no S hook on it. So Otarine, I mean, you have to be fairly confident though that it is an adjective and won't take anything below, but this is a good set to know because this is, of course, one of the highest probability Collins racks that is not available in NWL. In NWL, it's, of course, a very common set of tiles to play 8s with. But yeah, he's just not going to miss with something like that. Farce, probably the right idea given that I was holding the S. Didn't know what was going to hit me next, of course. And yeah, Edifice, I think my opponent actually considered something like that, but didn't want to leave me the S hook from what we were saying afterwards. I can see why he might have tried something else instead, even if he wasn't totally confident. But most things involving Edifice are going to hit me and hit me hard, and the thing is, even if I do see it, I can't block both lanes. Drow, I believe, is another Collins hook, because otherwise I would know it. It is Scots for a wet mist. So yeah, here, strategically, I don't know. I mean, given that I know exactly what's coming in the bag, oh, I guess doing Muse, or rather than Muse, would unduplicate vowels. But the thing is, you know that no matter what vowel I draw out of the bag, that's going to reduplicate, right? So at that point, I mean, this is obviously a challenge, first of all. But at that point, well, if I see that my opponent has Edifice, I just lose, and I accept that. If I'm assuming that he's going to miss because he just tried a phony, it's still really hard to see what the right play should be. Because if I want to draw to my own bingo, I would look at the pool at that point, and I saw stuff like Sillies. But it's really hard to just try to draw for something highly specific like that when it would be fairly low probability. Like, it wasn't a very good pool of tiles for me to draw into, I think, if I wanted to get a counter bingo, and I just don't know what the optimal exchange would have been if I wanted to exchange there to do some kind of big counterplay. Especially because all the tile values are so low at this point. Oh, that's a very interesting find, actually, tactics. With Muesli with the second S on it. That's an interesting idea. But yeah, I just was trying to find some kind of exchange that would give me a flexible range of options to draw into, and I wasn't seeing that. Like, it felt like I had to do something highly specific and then draw into something highly specific, instead of having a rack that could hit with several different draws, which was ideally what I would be looking for there. But the tile values are low enough that if he's going to score on one of these lanes with Edifice, it's going to be 90-something points. And at that point, he won't have enough point value on his rack for me to catch him anyway. And psychologically, I was kind of thinking, okay, if he missed the first time, if I'm not instantly seeing the fine, let's just kind of count on him to miss the second time. And I don't know if that was psychologically a good way of thinking, assuming that you're playing against somebody who's going to do something suboptimal. I mean, I'm really glad on one hand that he just showed me what's in the bag, but on the other hand, I don't think I could actually do much with that information. So, I believe that's going to be it, and that's just, not too much else to look at here in the end game. Like, I actually was finding some of the better sequences. Oh, I guess, yeah, you could dump that, but then you just have the eyes kicking around. Not a lot that you can work with. So, really not the worst out sequence, perhaps. Not optimal, but you know, it wasn't a situation where that would have made a difference. So that's going to be lost, 447 to 382. We are currently just waiting for pairings around 2 here. And yeah, we'll pop out and see if there are any ongoing games to spectate, but I assume that most of them should be done by now, so just give me one moment quickly. Still a couple of live games, actually. We'll just take a peek quickly to see how the other boards are doing. They're close to the end here. In a very close game, actually. They're 5 points apart. So here, I mean, let's see what's going on. They're 5 points apart. Oh, double blank situation here. Yeah, that's... I mean, it's going to burn off a lot of time. As you can see, Arthur B here is getting close to about a minute remaining. But if you can see it, yeah, ghosting. He's going to see it. That's just going to be a win. Okay. That's pretty straightforward, unless we see a place for Educate with these tiles, and I don't think Educate is actually going to go down anywhere. Just doesn't really fit. I'm trying to remember if... Yeah, no. I was trying to remember if a Jins would take the A hook. And it doesn't. The A hook here, because a Jin is good, but I think it just means again, and so you can't actually pluralize that. So with no spot for Educate, I think this game is over. So let's take a look at one of the other boards, perhaps. See how it's doing. We're not going to see pairings come up until both of these are sorted out, so... This one... Yeah, you've got about a 30-point deficit here. And 6 points on her opponent's rack, so if there's actually a place to play out for, say... What's it going to be? You need to get up to 296, you need to get up to 290 and score. No, that's not going to happen. So this game looks like it's also settled. Because I was looking for some kind of spot for viols or anything like that, but it's such a closed board. That's not going to happen. So... pairings for my division are beginning to come up. It's going to be an NWL game next, so we will get into that pretty quickly. We'll just jump into that right away, in fact. Okay. And we'll see how we do in a more familiar lexicon for round 2. Once my opponent is available. So we'll just wait for the match to be accepted, and we'll get right into it. Yeah, I got some other games starting up in the meantime. But sometimes, of course, people are momentarily taking a break between rounds. And so we'll just have to give this a minute or two to get going. Yeah, in terms of the previous round, I mean, obviously some absolutely gigantic blunders, like seeing neonates and not playing it. Seeing the out prefix and out spans and not playing it. I mean, just a lot of vision errors, I think, in that game that really could have been avoided. It's kind of interesting that despite having played a fair bit of this game recently and streamed it almost every week, that I actually do feel incredibly rusty, probably from lack of word study. But just a lot of rust to shake off when it comes to the play finding element of the game. So that's something that we will just need to keep in mind, and it's only going to be something you fix by putting in the time to work on it. I don't know if it actually allows me to keep the match request if I jump in to spectate one of the other boards. I'm actually not clear on whether Wiggles will do that, but then possibly we'll just receive the challenge separately if somehow this gets cancelled out. That would be useful to have, since I don't have a multi-tab or multi-window setup for streaming this right now. You know, so we can duck into some of the other boards and watch while I'm waiting for the match to go through. Yeah, probably just need to wait on the bathroom break here. But here we go. I will once again be going second in this round. And we'll just see how this one will go. Just going to make sure I have my drawing tool set up to the quadrangle. I do. I also have a very vowel-heavy rack. Likely I just want to play off tons of vowels and hope I get a more balanced draw. Something like, you know, playing Y-O-U somewhere and hoping I draw all consonants, or even doing the famous Collins E-U-O-I somewhere. Although keeping Y-A is maybe less likely to bingo than keeping the 3-vowel leave. I don't know about that. At this point in the game, I can't really tell much statistically about how I'll draw out of the pool even after my opponent plays. You know, even if he has a very consonant-heavy or vowel-heavy play here, I don't think that's going to affect my consonant-vowel probability of drawing into the bag all that much. And I find that I often overvalue considerations like that, where I'll think that the bag is going to be statistically consonant heavy, for instance, and then it's so early in the game that that information is frankly not useful yet. So we'll just see if we can make anything happen here. and hopefully set up to have a bingo on the next turn. And of course, you know, since I'm going second, we do have to allow for the possibility that I will just have something to play through here. So yeah, very vowel-heavy play from my opponent as well. I don't know if he would have just done that to make the C hit, or if everything is just vowel-heavy, so... on the assumption that it is, I think maybe it's not too bad an idea to just go YOU somewhere. Trying to think about what to do with this. I know, unfortunately, that in NWL anyway, this is not good. You would think that you'd have like an innie and an outie or something, but that is apparently just navel gazing. AYU is also a good play, potentially, if I want to parallel some things. I don't really like keeping the O in this situation, though. I feel like that's not going to be great. So let's see if there's anything I can do. Doing this play is okay. Still think that keeping the Y out of this rack is not actually going to be terrific. So I'm choosing between probably YOU for 12, but dangling the U, and maybe AYU for 16. Let's just do it. I mean, other than an X-bomb or a Q play, the U on the hotspot isn't too bad, and I don't think with such a vowel-heavy play from my opponent that we should be too concerned about that. Like, he wouldn't have held a Q coming out of the previous turn, or he would have just played quite, for instance. Okay, still very, very vowel-heavy. We just need to keep playing out of it. And see what we can do to get out of this situation. Not really seeing great locations to be doing that in, though. I'm trying to remember some of these. Collins plays ovals, okay. I feel like I should just be jumping some vowels all over the place here. I think VIA actually takes an E on the end in Collins, and that is actually not too bad an idea. I kind of remember this being the case. I don't know if it takes anything even further. I would assume not, because it looks like something that's already pluralized. But let's go with that. Okay. Oh, I'm playing NWL. Okay, whoops. Forgot which lexicon I'm in. It's funny because I'm playing in my comfort lexicon. And, oh, he's just going to let me have it, okay. Yeah, okay, very courteous of my opponent just take the pass there, because that was just blah. Getting which dictionary I'm in. Well, we've scouted ahead and realized that the J was in the bag. Okay, this feels like it's going to be something. Is something like Wireman good, or something like that? I don't know. Or there's something like that. It's not like with a D, I don't think. That's the name of somebody I know, I think. I think Wireman is actually fine. I don't know if there's anything else there that would be good. I mean, I'm looking at rack like this, and the first thing I'm thinking of is, like, what can I do with either M-A-N or M-E-N. And okay, yeah, always one of my favorite words to look at as a 7. I don't know if I've actually gotten it down as a 7 before. One nice thing, though, is that it actually does take an L at the end, I think. And there's some other spelling with it that takes even more vowels. Maybe. I might be thinking of something else like Ipamia, one of the other OEA endings. But I'm pretty sure this takes an L. I don't think it takes an E. Unless I can see something... I will probably just go Wireman and try it out. And yeah, tactics, like you were saying, very sporting of my opponent. It is something that does come up sometimes with this club simply because you have so many people switching back and forth. Anyway, this rack here, very vowel heavy. There are really not many 7s or even 8s in total that have 5 or more vowels, I think, so it's actually not hard to just go over the list once just for the sake of checking phonies or checking if you have anything. Because there are so few actual choices that you would have. That's... yeah, here I would almost certainly just be looking to dump this stuff somewhere. Ideally, I would get rid of EAU. But we'll see. Have to play around the board, of course, and see if anything better presents itself. Like Mio, or for that matter, Mu. I feel like the U is probably harder for my opponent to work with, but it doesn't particularly matter here, I think. Okay. This is the kind of rack that makes you think about bags. Like if there's going to be some kind of... I don't know. Fate bag, no. Bag feet. If you're packing for a long trip while you're looking for Bigfoot. No, this is unlikely to be a bingo. It's just too consonant heavy, too clunky. But if we can play off some consonants in a way that scores decently. You know, something like bag here does dangle the G at the end, and a G on a terminal position can be useful. You can do fab as well, but I think keeping the G might really not be that useful. Like between a choice of 31 keeping G and say 24 keeping F, oh, I think we just go for points for that. But of course G in terminal position is something that's potentially bingo prone, and F and T do have better synergy together, so. But keeping the F does allow you to set up for F plays down here. Man-wise, that's an interesting find. I hadn't considered that. I've seen that before, but when I look at the man and men words, I sometimes very easily overlook how that can go in front as a prefix. So, of course, I'm kind of looking at the N here as well, but, you know, with the U in that position, like anything you play here will have to tag onto that corner with an S, so. You know, if you were looking for a fit for, I don't know, like a Bang Fest or something, That wouldn't fit there. S is in a wrong position, and that's also not a word, I don't think. Would be very surprised. Looking at stuff like this position here, too. Yeah, currently the C presents a pretty big restriction. You know, unless you had something like an AC or OC ending. Like you came down with bivouac or something. Or lineac or some word to that effect. Okay, I don't really have an O or anything that would make use of the J, and I'm not going to burn a blank on that for anything, but EF here is actually not horrible. Given that otherwise I would just be managing consonants, for instance. 29 there, though. Only 32 for EF. I think I'd rather keep the E. So the question here is, which consonant do I keep? I keep F. That's 22 points. Let's go with points. Let's keep G. Always a bit nervous about keeping G because it's just something that gets in the way. I think that's going to be better than any play that spends the E and keeps too many consonants. Now we can regret that with whatever I've gotten here. Ramenta is very nice. Trying to think about whether I can have something that would make use of the X. This might be a spot where spending the blank is not the worst idea. Characters is only going to be 57 though. If I can find another good X play, that's likely not worth it, because even AXE is 40 there. And even just playing extra is 36 there. Let's take a look at extra for just a moment in case there is something I can do with the RG blank. Yeah, that's one of those adjustments, you know, in terms of keeping F, B, or G, that's equity-wise I'm kind of uncertain about it, which is why I just went for points. Because I know, you know, G is something that's vastly overrated, but to some extent so is the B. When it comes to how bingo prone it's going to be. Like, it's not as good as you would hope. So we can go X here. But the lanes close off pretty quickly after that. Maybe. I mean, we still have lanes. We still have this lane up here, this lane down here. You have a vowel start. This, of course, would remain open and very volatile. But I'm just trying to think, because this would open lanes and close that down, but RG blank with actually a very vowel-starved pool. If you look at it, 15 vowels, 30 consonants, kind of a 1-to-2 ratio. I think I'm going to go with this. Not a great deal of turnover, but... And of course the R remains this massive threat on the board. I liked my chances doing that a bit better, though. Notice that we have the Z hook here, if we want to use it that way. Okay, Horrier is not going to be too bad. We can just go Azo for the 30 here, and that's not going to be too bad either, even though it does really constrict this lane. It doesn't shut it off, but it does constrict it. Let me just do some due diligence here and make sure we don't have anything that is actually going to be a mega play. I like Azo here, though. I think it's not too bad. Looking at Z plays over on that spot as well, of course. I think I just want to go for Azo. Doesn't totally close off. Having a Q here is kind of terrible. But we have an O. Sorry, a U, rather. For, you know, probably just something like Quig. Once again, digging into a bag that's going to give us both vowel trouble, I think. We now have less than a 1-to-2 ratio when it comes to vowels to consonants. So, I don't want to spend that E too aggressively if I can help it. I may not have a choice, though, if I want to remain on pace. I think first choice play right now is definitely going to be through the U. Oh wait, no, that's not. What? No, I'm thinking of Quag. Q-U-A-G. I don't. Oh no, I'm thinking of Squeg. That's what it is. S-Q-U-E-G. It's like, okay, barely avoided a problem here. Yeah, why did I think that was good? I'm almost certainly just thinking of Squeg or Quag. Okay, so never mind that. That doesn't work. I don't actually have any good Q plays then. And that would not have fit anyway. I think this is actually going to be... We're 40 behind. Do I want to do an exchange? I feel like I have to strongly consider it because I don't have a way to get out of this situation without starting to dump some things. So the idea here, I think, would probably be change QKG. Because just about anything else I do makes my position worse. Notice that this takes a T at the end, this kind of takes other stuff at the end. Like a K if there's a way to actually use it, but... Yeah, Y is going to require a vowel start, and in this pool, I don't know if that's going to happen. So I think QKG exchange is probably my best bet. Still way too consonant heavy. And I knew that drawing into the pool, but... Yeah, we're in a bit of trouble now. Trying to see what I can do here. Yeah, we need to play out of this. I can't just keep trying to manage my rack. Because now I'm way behind and it's just not a bingo prone board. And I guess maybe if we... I mean, we can dump consonants, but that doesn't really do anything for me either. Maybe something like that. Don't like any of these options. I mean, we have the blank. We can always dangle. And as far as synergy goes, that's one of the less bad outcomes. Although, of course, that's very trivially closed off on the right side with any kind of follow-up play. Okay. Righted. If it fits anywhere, probably not. But... this starts getting into territory of being... racks that are a bit more playable. The G is still in a way, but at least a GH combo sometimes can give me something. Righted doesn't fit anywhere now, but it... if it gives us If we have some kind of spot for it, then that's something that we should definitely be considering. If not, then we pretty much have to continue playing out of this somehow. Like, you know, maybe we just go GHI down here. Yeah, it's going to be one of those boards where if nothing spectacular happens, like for example, quids or quads or something like that, with a Q, like a Q blank play on this spot is something that's now a really perceptible danger. I think it would require the S because otherwise nothing is going to quite string through to D. So yeah, we'll have to think about that. Other than that, though, I don't know if we really have much in the way of options. Okay. That's fine. I'm just trying to look at whether there's any potential down here. I think maybe the original idea I had for GHI is probably okay. We just try to manage the rack a bit. That, of course, has conclusively now closed off. This is a possibility. So let me just see if we can do anything here. We're so far behind at this point, though. That's I'm not spending the blank here, obviously, but I'm just checking points. We can also just do something through here. It's just that the top position would remain pretty closed. You know, just do small plays like that. That would pretty much commit to aiming for this spot, though, and that's kind of trivially blocked. So I may want to at least create the appearance of opening. Still really low in the bag, though. I think given the presence of the Q that we threw back into the bag, small plays and small draws might be the theory here. Okay, now we have something. We have directs, we have credits. Like I said, I'm not really expecting that to stay open. You know what? It fits. Credits fits under quid. Like that. And I'm ahead by 4 points. And we actually have a rack that's identical to a rack that I had in the previous game. Extremely fortunate for me that the Q didn't actually block that off. Also extremely fortunate to me that I have the other S, which means that we can, in fact, do something to capture the Q over here. 44 points, for instance. Like, picking up the S at the end there, that's a game-winning draw, pretty much. Extremely fortunate, because I think whoever controls the last S here pretty much just kills this spot, right? Because what else are you going to do, right? You're not going to have much flexibility when it comes to actively blocking that. And currently, with 3 tiles in the bag, my opponent also doesn't know that I have this for sure. But I think this is absolutely going to be the play here. It's going to be E something S, and I think the only thing that will go there is N. So I think N's is absolutely first choice if it remains available. Also, Quids is just going to close off this corner, and so that's not a threat either. Notice on my opponent's side that depending on what he has, he's probably staring at something quite similar to a bingo that doesn't fit either, something like Tinkled or something like that. So we do need to be aware of the pool in case we have a situation, say, where he does a small opening of some sort. That would then draw into something that would actually fit. Because I'm looking at that and you can see the ing ending, you can see a couple of interesting ed endings like I said, tinkled, or words that are similar to that. So we can't be totally complacent. What I will probably do, though, is ENS here, but if he's doing some kind of really fishy opening, we'll look at a pool, we'll look at what's possible, and probably prioritize closing that off, and continue to threaten this, because even if this is no longer available, the S still gives me a ton of power. So, I think, thanks to two things, this and the S draw at the end, I suddenly feel like I'm in great shape. But this was definitely, I think, a case of feeling like I was sliding into that on luck. Because look at that, even after this bingo, I barely got over the line in terms of pulling ahead by 4 points. Notice also no tiles left to take advantage of the J position over here. So yeah, there wouldn't have been a lot of draws that would have that nice I fit under the Q, I think. And so in most cases, you could see why you might have thought this was a pretty safe thing to do in terms of closing off the lane. So, just going to see what we can do with this, but I may have been able to pull it out. Also, I'm trying to remember. I believe that Hog does take the second G as well if we want to make any play down that way. You know, with something like Bag for 15. Once again, I don't want to play something like Bang because I want to keep the N for the S idea in the bottom right. But if we're in a situation where I want to prioritize having an out in 2 sequence, depending on how close the score is, that's something we need to consider as well. That's, for example, if I play this, BAGT looks like I'd be committing to an out in 3. I think 44 points is going to make that worthwhile, but until we see what my opponent plays, I don't know that for a fact. Also notice B spot goes nicely over to Y as well, so we've got a couple of hooks here that look pretty promising, I think. Like B spot here, G spot here. My opponent has the other G and he's just going to play it over there, so I'm not going to open for him. It looks like he wanted to avoid emptying the bag by playing off 2 tiles. But also, he was probably counting on drawing an S in this location. And 1 tile in the bag, we'll just play this. And then we'll see what I draw into, because it looks like tempo-wise I'll probably be a little bit behind. Here's one thing I need to take a look at. Nothing in front of ovals, I don't think. But that's the kind of thing that you don't want to miss by accident. I think we absolutely go for this. And yeah, N is going to come out of the bag, which means that next play is likely to be something like Bang. 22. unfortunately not going to just dangle an E in the middle of nowhere for my opponent to play Tinkered or something to that effect. I don't think there are any 7s in there anyway, at least not that I can see. And so I think I'm in good shape. I don't see what the big risk factors are going to be. So next play will likely be Bang. Failing that, we'll probably just do same thing down here for 7 fewer points. And then I've got plenty of places to just dump a T after that. You know, so we've got like 6 points here or whatever. I think it might be possible for my opponent to play out in 2, though. So we'll see. This is going to be a close one. Yeah, some possibilities with the D hook over here. And that may potentially play in a way that makes me rethink what to do. I kind of doubt it, though, looking at what my opponent has. I don't think anything ending in D is going to be particularly good for him. He would never dangle the K in first position, for instance. Equids there, yeah, that's actually not a bad idea. He's low on time, though. I think that was at least partly a panic move. I think Bang here is probably going to be fine. It does open up the possibility for something like Brink, but that's okay. He's not going to go out. Brink, however, yeah, 15, 16, 17, 18, 21. So yeah, I mean, we're going to be even on score. I just want to get rid of tiles, so let's just do it. I would assume he's going to go Brink. So it's probably not an optimal sequence, but it does guarantee to win. 7 there, and yeah, Kid there now that I can't do anything about it with my A. That's a good play. Although he was down to 8 seconds, so not much for him to look at there. Looks like I just need to commit to this unless I see anything better in this situation where we have 1. Let's take it. Okay, Ramenta does not take an S. That's something that we have found out at the end of the game. Right, because Ramenta, I think, is already a plural of Ramentum or something. Let's plug that into define and see what that is, because it is a plural of Ramentum. Okay, yeah. And he's asking me, is it Sarmenta? I think it is actually something like that. Let's just do anagram quickly. Yeah, Sarmenta and Semantra. So. Yeah, I think the Q play, ultimately, we're kind of discussing that in our chat right now. The Q play is kind of questionable if he's not holding S or blank to follow it up with something. I think that was probably just out of desperation to dump the Q at that point. But let's just go over the game and take a look at it quickly to see if there's anything critical. Obviously, not challenging Ramento was a big problem. Rementas rather. Rementa singular is, or Rementa already plural is good. Oops. Now let's clear the drawing tool over here. And yeah, pretty well heavy as a start. Cutie is, in fact, a recommended play there. I'll just make sure we don't have pairings coming up yet. Okay, I think we're fine. Here, I don't think I knew Koyo. A steep roof design, that's interesting. And look at this Uguya. I've seen that before. I've maybe even played it before. It's trying to remember if there's any variant spelling, like with only one U. And that's something we'd have to punch in and see. Interesting that it has Khoum, Khoum, under the related list. That's not what I would have expected. I guess it's just money, though. So yeah, would have been an interesting fit, but I would not have spent the blank on something like that. That's why I would not have seen that play. Interestingly enough, though, that it evaluates pretty closely to some of the other leaves, even after spending the blank, probably because it scores so comparatively well, but spending a blank on a 30-something point play like that, I mean, if you're a better player, you might do that. I feel like in my position, I want to hold the blank for bingos. Round 3 pairings are going to come up pretty quickly because I think we were one of the last holdouts, so I will go through this game fully at the end together with my round 3 game. So, because I don't think I'll have time to look at this properly. Look at that! That's he saw Eupnia and held S because he didn't think it took an S. Is that actually what happened? Or... oh, no, yeah. That was not my turn anyway. Yeah, okay. So yeah, I'm just negotiating lexicon with my next opponent. We'll come back and look at this afterwards. As Tactics was saying earlier, man-wise as an alternative, womanize as well. Let's get into the game. Just one moment. We'll come back to this one to look at it afterwards. Oh, it's going to be a 15-minute clock. Okay, this one's going to be a brisk. Okay, well, it just means that we'll need to play quickly, and that will leave us more time to do the analysis for both rounds afterwards. I feel like maybe there was something in there that I wasn't looking at closely enough, but I feel like subjectively there is a huge difference between the 15 and the 20-minute clock. And so I panic a little bit sometimes when I see stuff like that. He would obviously go here if we just wanted to go like faux. Having one point tiles like this is not that great if you have lots of duplication and no bingo yet. So we'll just, you know, play off what I can, maybe playing off down here as well, just to get some positions open. But we'll have to get back to that in just a moment. Depending on what my opponent does, of course. I mean, I'm also thinking about positioning here. Lots of stuff could go over here, especially in Collins. I think that takes an N in front. Small play like that also tells me my opponent is probably fishing towards something decent. We can do this. Obviously, it makes the QI vulnerable to S, or in this case N, but I'm holding the N, so I can follow up on that if I want. So let's take it. I don't know if you can have Deafener. I have my doubts about that. But it's okay, because we have lots of stuff we can do. We can do Fen here for 38. I feel like we're probably close to something here, though. So let's just keep that in mind before we spend too many tiles. I feel like taking that spot with the N is a good option to have available if we can't see anything better in the short term. And yeah, this top position here looks like a wide open lane, just waiting to happen. I believe in Collins that's FY. Let me think about that. No, I'm thinking of NY, that takes to E. FY... I don't know if it takes anything. Yes, NY that takes to E. Okay, she's just going to spend the S to grab that position ahead of me. That's alright, that was a calculated risk. Let's see if there's anything I can do here. Probably just some kind of small play here. You know, like just doing Fed or something. Or 23. It's not great. It does close off the lane when I'm trying to build towards a bingo, though. This probably spends too many tiles. 33. Opens up a little too much. I don't know about that, though. Yeah, well, we can just do some rack management plays, I guess. But then now that would make the board look significantly more closed. Because then what do you do, right? We can also go for something like that, 27. I don't like that A position, though. And that's a very important thing to keep in mind in terms of why we might potentially want to keep D. So if we go Fen like that, Fen allows me to have a D hook up there, and I still have a D hook off Hope. I don't know if I like that. Okay, this is going to be de-aired, I think, if... Yeah, de-airing something, I believe that's gotta be good. So, like I said, we do have a D spot down here. I don't know if we have anything at good other than de-aired. There's like re-aired. If there's a good place for it. De-haired if there's anywhere, but no, I think we just go de-aired. And yeah, too bad about that A if there's a Z bomb that drops on it, but I'm pretty happy with this. Can't control everything when it comes to bingo positioning. So that's going to pull me ahead. We could do a... No, we can't actually. I don't really have that much that would go in front of I. In terms of something that would make me on top of this spot. So we'll see what we can do. I might not be able to do anything interesting with that hotspot that I just opened up. But I would if I'm trying to stay ahead, want to close off that volatility somehow. I mean, you know, still early in the game, you don't have that much control over lanes, but I would like to at least minimize disasters. You can kind of implicitly close in, if I'm worried about something like a Z-bomb, by playing through a lower lane in such a way that it would restrict those possibilities. Obviously, that would still be vulnerable to big plays with H or F or whatever. No F's remaining. But, you know, the many heavy consonants that could go in front of A. J also, because this is Collins. And yes, it is 14 Domino. I've been enjoying it quite a bit, especially in the quadrangle mode that I kind of found by accident on stream about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Because I think when I first started playing with the Telestrator here, the quad mode was either not implemented or not documented, but it is actually much, much better for my purposes, because I'm usually just drawing loops anyway. So, very happy with that tool. And yeah, 14 Domino, for anybody in chat who doesn't know, is the developer of this platform, so any bugs that we see, we can report directly to him. And yeah, it's in the same way that it's the 0 command to open up Telestrator, it's 0Q to activate quad mode. And I'm very happy with it, so... probably something like Ember here for 36, unless we have something. It's funny because my rack is quite close to what my opponent had last turn. Medicine is a pretty nice find, but I feel like the E dangling here is something I do need to diffuse if I don't have any other good Emberic? Maybe? I don't think I'd have a... I feel like I might be making that up, but no, it's I think it's got to be something else. I feel like I am missing something with this rack because it looks somewhat familiar, but let's just try to close this off and draw into something better. So... yeah, so much for that. Doubling the N and the I is something we can get out of. Right now, of course, we have tons of open lanes going this way. So I guess we kind of confirmed that 14 Domino was not the one who implemented this feature. AVA does not take S in NWL, rather? I don't know about Collins. I feel like I should check anyway, even though my opponent seems to be an experienced Collins player. I feel like I have to check. And, you know, if we are wrong, we're wrong, yeah. Play is valid, I give her 5 points. And... okay, that's fine. We'll play out of that and see if I can do anything. Probably just need to do something about the IN somehow. I have to remember that HA actually does take C in front. So I don't really want to keep double N, but you know, if you wanted to, don't want to do that against a potential X-bomb, but you see what I'm saying here anyway, is that the C spot, if I keep a C, is still potentially fine. Okay, I have to go quickly here. Let's see. We can just do a little dummy play here. 8 points. I mean, I am ahead marginally. That's not going to get me out of trouble at all. That's probably just a bad play. Yeah, I probably should have just done something here, because now my opponent has tons of opportunities to catch up. I feel like I still need to do a whole bunch of silly rack management, though. You know, just to get myself out of this eye trouble. There have to be some better fits with stuff like that. But yeah, keeping that C ending in mind over ha is something that I should not forget. Or maybe even something like Insight, just to dump a bit more. That's not that many points, though. That's an additional 10 points. I guess at this stage of the game that might actually matter. Should I be trying to draw heavily into this pool? I don't know. It is not very bingo prone right now, so maybe the E is not actually that powerful. Trying to see if there's something else with like an ITE ending that might be an 8, perhaps. Maybe. Don't really know my rocks and minerals well enough. Still looking at the A position beside the G, in case anything decides to go there. D hook is still available on Fen. Okay, so that's going to go down. Interesting A positioning here. I feel like I should just stomp on that immediately. Too many T's here. Let me see if there's anything I can do, like maybe like Lotta over here. That's not a lot of points, but that's probably my best option, unless I have anything that has like OUT with anything good. No. Oh, you know what? I should have just gone total, because lavas. I totally forgot until I put that down that the L, like an AL ending, would have worked just fine here. And indeed, even when I was holding the C, C would go in front, I think, for Kavas. Anyway, given the right vowel to play through, this might actually be something. But yeah, I'm looking at the U right now. Or something like spurting. Spurting is good, I think. It's gotta be. Okay, now I feel like I'm in good shape. I'm looking at this to see if I can have anything go down there with my Y. Of course, I think EIK... I mean, I don't know my Collins hooks that well, but it should take an S for something like nosy, and that would keep me ahead. 4 tiles in a bag. This would empty the bag, and there is some possibility that my opponent has Z, so I'd be worried about something like ZOO coming this way. But I think if there aren't any really dangerous parallel spots like this one, that... Wow, you got Z and X in the pool. Something like Nosy would draw 4, empty the bag, and play against the X and the Z. I'd be up by about 70. But being up by about 70 is going to slim down pretty quickly because absolutely every vowel, A, E, or O, of which my opponent will have at least one because there are 5 vowels in the pool and 4 tiles in the bag. My opponent, I think, is guaranteed to get about 50 points off of this. That's going to be, what is it, 44 and 2, 46 points off of this. So, maybe rational play is not to take the top position with the Y just yet. One possibility is to maintain vowels and diffuse that with something like rye. It does mean that this idea with the Y is no longer available, but that's okay because I'm ahead by enough that... like 21 there. Okay, so let's say I go nosy down here. That's 41, but then my opponent has a 46-point play available. That's going to be -5, plus I have a tempo disadvantage because I emptied a bag with 7 on my rack. And I have potential vowel trouble. So I think if I go 20 here, my opponent is still able to do something like Zoa up here, but that's not nearly as threatening, I don't think. Zoa would be something like 12 and 6, that's 18, that's 36, that's 12, that's 48 points. Okay, but I still have the S to do something down there. This is tricky, but at least I don't empty the bag, and then I'd still need to worry about the X somewhere. This is actually going to be maybe a tougher endgame than I gave it credit for. But I think the rational thing to do here is undouble the R, keep my only vowel, and then worry about the Z or X, because unless it's something like Zax going down somewhere, my opponent will not, like Zax going down here, for instance, my opponent should not be able to capitalize on both. Ooh, X spot here. That's dangerous. So if my opponent has both a big X play, both that and a big Z play, then I'm in trouble. But if I see one of them go down, I should be able to stop the other one and still score reasonably using my S. Let's go for it. Okay. So, for example, you know, we just go loser here. We'll hopefully not be the loser. Ooh, interesting. Interesting. Because I don't have an O. Oh, sorry, I don't have an A for anything like ask. And I don't believe Fen takes anything that I can play through it. Two minutes remaining, and I have to be vigilant here because my opponent will not be able to take this with the X because the tiles don't actually work with it. I think the correct thing to do is probably just to go like that and try to stay ahead. So the worst case scenario right now for my opponent is something like Vax here. Vax would be how much? That's going to be 22 off of this, 26, 28. I should be able to stay ahead. I should be able to stay ahead because I don't think there will be anything worse than that. Oh, also I can play even more tiles off. Assuming that EIK takes the S. I think I have to assume that it does. I don't know my call-ins well enough. I think that absolutely has to be the play. Then I should be able to outpace rather, because I don't think my opponent will get rid of all the heavy tiles all at once. So I see something like Vax here. But I don't see a better play for my opponent that would give her to win. Let's take a look. We've got less than 30 seconds remaining, so I would be looking to do something like an LO play over there. We have 4 points off of that. We have 6 points off of AAL, which is probably going to be first choice. I'm really regretting that I didn't think about this. Could have used that extra batch of points off Lavas. That's okay, that's the kind of thing we just regret after the game. So yeah, remember, I barely got to look at Game 2, so I will be looking at both Game 3 and Game 2 at the very end. And giving you a look at all that. Yeah, Vax is exactly what I expected, and we are just going to go AAL and take the win. So yeah, that was a tight one. So yeah, pretty happy with how that one went given the circumstances. I feel like I might have missed a few things there, but I'm glad I left myself enough time to look at both the potential spots for Z and X, but I think this wound up being the right call here. Just given the unknowns, right? Like, I want to minimize the number of different combinations of draws that I would lose to, and if I were spending my last vowel while keeping a double R, I think I have potential tempo issues, and also just, you know, from emptying the bag, that's... Well, we'll see what was actually in the bag at the end there when we look over the game quickly, so let's get into the post-game analysis and see if we can do anything to reveal what happened there. Phoner, okay. So yeah, I think if I'd looked at that more carefully, I would have considered a play that actually scores. A lot of these are decent. Phone, I think, was something I would have gone for. You wouldn't want to play Orphan like that because of the possibility of Orphaned. Although if I'm holding E, then the idea would be that I would be trying to draw towards a D to do something like that if it did remain open. But anyway, not horrible, I don't think. Let's see, I find that I tend to overvalue a lot of those 3-point starts though, but you can see that in terms of just pure equity difference, you're talking about like a 5-point difference from the higher scoring plays. And just because the AENR leave is that powerful, that, you know, this is being evaluated at about 25. So depending on the kind of board that you prefer to play on, I think it's defensible. And yeah, look at this as an early rack. What did she end up going for? She ended up going for getting rid of the Q right away, which, given that QU together has some potential, you'll notice that a lot of the leaves that spend a V and keep QU evaluate a bit better, probably because of that remaining flexibility from having QU AI available. So, what do we have here? Foe actually was fine, I think. Once again, you're starting to get into a situation where you're beginning to lock off the top left, especially with the Q in that position, but it wasn't going to stay that way for very long, I don't think. And Mang, thank you once again belatedly for the GG emote earlier. Been very pleased to have that in over the past week. Yeah, look at this, that even keeping AEO is something that evaluates decently. Same with OY. Notice that this is sort of being read as like a plus 48 even. So it's not scoring much, and even if it is keeping V with lots of vowels. So I can see why... Yeah, I was reading that correctly, I think, as a near bingo play, although I didn't know how vowel heavy would be in that situation. And Tactics, thank you for the GG as well. I did not consider that as a way to go. I think that's because, well, I mean, that would still work with the idea of keeping the N. I feel like this is Collins only for sure. I must have seen it before, otherwise. It's an adjective as well, which is why you wouldn't have seen anything with it as a 7. But anyway, very froggy word if you ever have one froggy evening. But I'm actually pretty happy with that. I mean, you know, I didn't know she would have the S to go for it right away. Look at that, she has abusive, but no place to put it. I don't think there's a place. Oh, no. Abusive does go down, okay. I was looking at her rack first before I was looking at the evaluator, and then I realized there's suasive and abusive. Suasive, as in something like persuasive. Let me see about lexicon for that one, because I'm not totally certain. Yeah. It's basically persuasive. So, yeah, I guess she wasn't looking at the S hook here. I did see abusive in that rack right away, but suasive, I think with that sort of weird SUAS shape, is actually a bit harder to see. And suasive actually has a really good positioning under the Q there, so... yeah, I didn't see any 7s here, and in case we were wondering, there are none available on the board. I wouldn't have known the A hook in front of Vass. It would be Collins only, I'm pretty sure. Vass. Oh, it's the same thing as a Kava. And a Kava. So, yeah, I was going to check Deafener, I think. And not found. Okay, I didn't think so. Not that it goes down on this board anyway, but... yeah, just didn't know the A hook, so I thought the V had more or less closed things off. Oh, I should have considered the D hook on top of OY as well. That's another Collins only one, I'm pretty sure. I knew NOY. And there are a bunch that are in both lexicons, like a FOY, but DOY I just did not visualize. But given the circumstances, I think that if I'm thinking in terms of lanes... yeah, I mean, obviously it's probably nicer to just score 30 somewhere, but... scoring 21 with lots and lots of D spots actually did end up working out for me. My opponent is drowning in vowels at this point. FENI, I think, is also a Collins hook. It is a Hindi word for an alcoholic spirit made from coconuts. If you ever have a lovely bunch of those. So I saw de-aired right away, and I was looking for spots for like re-aired or something. I did not see this lovely thing here, re-invade, probably because Nain is a Scots word that is another Collins hook that is very difficult to remember. I believe that's got to be Collins only, but let me just check that. Oh, whoops, sorry. Define Nain. Yeah. Of course, re-invade would be pretty volatile in terms of leaving all kinds of stuff open. If you like to play on that kind of board. Now, what did we have here? This I actually feel like I've seen before because it also starts with FOE. Yeah. because I had the variant starting with FOE, Federy, I guess, or Federy. I had the variants starting with FOE played on me a few weeks ago, and it's one of those words that just looks so memorable as soon as you see it. Anyway, I did find D. Arid, and apart from the... I didn't see the I hook, of course, but I found a D. Arid in the lower position for 75 points. I think that's fine. Doesn't run into trouble here. Does open the lanes here, but that's going to happen with a bingo. This here, being vulnerable to something like a Z bomb, was probably the worst possible outcome. Z or J bomb. Lots of stuff here. Endemic. Wow, look at this parallel. Look at this. Spectacular. Very difficult to see. But ecdemic. Interesting. I mean, you just move the blank and you can make endemic, but ecdemic is foreign, and it's the opposite of endemic. Right. So, nice little pair to go together if you have a blank in that position. Endemic and ecdemic. Zekimvir, which I thought was something like a triumvir, but with more governors. 10 magistrates rather than, say, 3 magistrates if you're a triumvir. So, governance by a party of 10. That's what a decimvir is, and that would have been spectacular if you could find that. 90 points. So, lots of crazy plays that are possible here, and look at this. CN starts Snemides. Or, oh, Snemides, I guess. Let's take a look at that. That is also going to be a Collins-only word, but some really fancy stuff all over the place. And my opponent's going to find Medicine, which is going to dangle this. I mean, it's about 30 points behind a lot of these spectacular plays, but some of those finds are just crazy. Okay, so here's what I missed. I missed Be Crimed. I don't think I would have been confident in Be Crime even if I saw it, but to make guilty of a crime. So I don't know if that's from the judge's perspective or prosecutorial perspective or something, but if you becrime somebody, that's what you're doing. Just assigning guilt. So that was a miss. Given that it was a miss, Ember is probably fine just to diffuse the triple lane. Here's a rack that looks like it has tons of potential, but actually doesn't. And decent play from my opponent there. Doesn't really open up for much, apart from perhaps S lane coming down under Galt. Galt is the kind of thing I want to check as well, lexicon-wise. A heavy, thick clay soil. And yeah, that's good in both. Just wanted to be clear about that. Galut. Or Galith. That's also Hebrew. That might be Collins only. Can't tell sometimes because there's so much that's Hebrew or Yiddish that is good in the American dictionary because of all the American borrowings. So, once again, don't know the I hook, so I'm not going to see stuff like that. I really should have considered playing down from the M, though, instead of doing some of the small managerial plays I was doing to undouble the I's. Because the thing I did was take this corner, and there isn't that much threatening me beside a U that would require me to lock that off. If I was worried about the lane under Galt, playing off the M for points should have been the thing I was doing. So, I feel like this turn was definitely bungled on my part. And I was not happy with that. Because I let the lead slowly slip away, especially when my opponent is very happy to take that position in my place. So, yeah, I was looking at this position for Tick. I was kind of shying away from, first of all, the X bomb here, but if I wanted to set up a bingo lane for my E, though, I should have considered that taking advantage of the E hook in front of Tick is something that I could do. For Etic. So maybe that would have been worth the risk of a consonant bomb here, because right now I have bingo-prone tiles, but I have no lanes. And if I wanted lanes, giving myself a sort of back position for an E is a good way to try to make that happen. So we have my opponent's rack here. Lots of cool parallels that are possible there, but instead she's just going to do a small play. Keep IORSU. That's a curious play that she would kind of open up for a consonant bomb she can't quite use, but maybe she was thinking in terms of opening up a lane that front hooks onto AW. But that play I find a little bit weird, for sure. And Fusion GT, welcome. And apparently Fusion GT, the dictionary believes that fusion is something Scottish, which is perhaps why the rest of us have yet to discover cold fusion. Yeah, kind of interesting that the dictionary would go with that instead of the more conventional nuclear meaning, but, you know, whatever justifies its playability as well as all the words that are related to it. Let's take a look at that, in fact. Nice thing about fusion, of course, is that you can always put CON in front of it for confusion. And so we'll see what we can do about that. Yeah, I mean, that's the experience of playing this game. It's probably because the related command pulls up all of the words with dictionary definitions that have something to do with like cellular fusion or microbial fusion or something like that. So that's why it would drag all of that stuff into the mix. Anyway, I just went for that right away as dub just to close that off and kill this position. And I feel like that was probably positionally a defensible play, and once again, still not seeing the I hook here, so... and also still not seeing the L hook in front of Ava's, as I was saying much earlier. And yeah, really difficult position for my opponent, actually. But she's not going to see a lot of the tricky stuff like parallels here. And... okay, so I just don't know this word. Teletot. That is also going to be another word taken from the Hebrew. Let me just check lexicon. That actually is good in both. So if you have a kind of low point rack that has 3 T's on it in either dictionary, teletot is something you could go for. So I considered total, and then I just, once again, did not see that L actually goes in front of this position, so I just went Lotta instead, in the same spot on the left, which is fewer points, but strangely enough, much better defense along this lane up here. So, yeah, lots of high point plays. Like, the bot is just begging my opponent to do a parallel down here. Toe-like would have been pretty dangerous positionally. I doubt she would have chosen it. But... okay, that's where we get EIK, which is getting into this weird endgame situation where you have both the Z as well as the X still available. Spurting, I'm just going to dump that in there right away. And... yeah, I mean, as soon as I saw my rack there, I was looking for a vowel to play through. There was only one spot on the board, and I was just very lucky that it actually fit. And yeah, so Fusion, when you're using the define command, the pound symbol next to the word says that the word is only valid in the larger competitive dictionary, which is CSW, or Collins Scrabble words. There are 2 major English dictionaries that are in use, and we tend to play in both of them. The pound symbol just says the word is only good in the bigger dictionary. And so you can see which dictionary we're playing in the top right corner, where it says CSW 19. So this game was in the Collins dictionary. So all of this stuff with the pound symbol does apply. It's a bit of a long story in terms of why competitive Scrabble is that way, but that's mainly because the rights to Scrabble are just a gigantic international mess. And if you ever want to hear the full story, I'd be happy to regale you. But so okay, so this is the endgame situation where things get weird. I was looking at Nosy up top, but Rosie is actually much better because it undoubles the R. But here's where I was worried about my opponent coming in with pretty much a guaranteed Z play. Unless I drew Z myself. Like, she definitely has a vowel that would work here. And if I had a Z play followed by a big X play, like something like this still seemed like it was available, if my opponent had 6 or ticks or something like that, I would probably just straight up lose with a bad draw. And, you know, some kind of situation where I'm not able to block multiple plays. So, for example, even if I do block this spot, if my opponent has Z and X, you could still have a Z play up here and have a choice of 2 positions. And so I think positionally I actually did wind up going for the right thing here with Rye, even though it scores so much worse than everything else. I'm actually very happy with how the endgame went from there. Notice X was actually in the bag. So let's take a look at this. Last tiles in the bag, it looks like my opponent played, JOG here, keeping AEST. She draws VAZ out of the bag first. And then XH out of the bag second. What do I draw? I play off RY and I draw OE. So last 4 tiles in the bag at this turn are EHOX, which is a really interesting situation. So oddly enough, if I had played something like Nosy, I would have drawn into an X play. But I wouldn't have been able to use this, I don't think. Oh, no, I guess I would have for... If I played Rosie, then I keep N for something like Nyx that I threaten here. But regardless, yeah, so I just, as the player that was head, decided to do the low-risk thing and try to hedge against a situation where my opponent has both X and Z, and tried to think about a winning path to get out of that situation. This was a really interesting play, actually. Zest here for... Oh, that's interesting. That my opponent is, I think, unsure about EIK taking S. Or she could have quite easily gone for Zest there herself for 11 more points. Which would also block me off from doing anything with the S over here. So I think Zest up here might actually have been a winning play if she is still holding X. Maybe. It would be a much tighter situation anyway. Like, I'd have to think about where she could go with the X in terms of trying to block off any remaining positions. Because, like, she would still draw into the same stuff at the end of the bag. She would still draw HX coming into her final rack. But if I don't have Sooner available for 29 points, then I'd have to think very carefully about what I do have that would allow me to stay ahead of any big constant heavy plays here, because at that point I'm sitting on 1 point tiles. So yeah, I think this is a much better play. It's plus 11 points and it kills my S. And if I'm sitting on 1 point tiles entirely, there's not that much that I can actually do, I think. Like, I would mostly be trying to deny scoring, so 50 points here would put her 2 points behind. 2 points behind with the X, though. And I'd pretty much just have to outpace her. So yeah, I feel like I kind of got away with something there. I didn't actually think about it at the time when Zest went down here, that she could have just as easily taken the S position herself. But anyway, I don't think she has a... Oh, Hapax. Wow, look at that fit. That's 30 points there. That gets her up to 373. And then can I stick her with the V? I don't think so. I think this is still a losing play. Hapax. For 30, because she would get up to 373, and that's not enough, and I would absolutely be able to play off the L somewhere. And Hapax is something that is good in both lexicons as well. I do know that one for sure. It's actually a good linguistics word. I'll just mention a definition. Because it's a word that occurs only once. It's a Hapax legomon. Anyway, as I was saying, I didn't get a chance to go over Game 2, so I'm going to look over that very quickly as well. Just give me a moment, and I'll try to dig that up on my side. So we'll just go down to recent games list. There was a tie in one of the other rooms. Let's take a look at that. 358 to 358 at the very end. I wonder if there was some kind of winning play that was missed at the end. And... oh, that's curious that you would... oh, that's with the final rack, that's why. Yeah, it looks like that actually was a crazy tied finish. Anyway, let's take a look at my game. Let's go back and take a look at Game 2 here. So yeah, this was the one where I failed to challenge off Rementas, because Rementa is already a plural of Rementum. And so this is an invalid word that stayed on the board. Let's just go through this somewhat quickly so we can see what happened. Cutie here. Yeah, we looked through some of the earlier turns. I didn't know Koyo, of course. Don't know enough about architecture. Architecture is one of those fields of knowledge that can actually get you very far in this game. Lots of options on my opponent's side, actually. But this is where he is going to go ovals up in one of the lower scoring but open locations. I guess if he was going to go ovals anyway, that's... yeah, that's 23 points. That's 1 point behind something nearly equivalent here, and positionally I could see why he might have liked that a bit better. And I can also see why he would have, even if he did see salvos, decided to keep the second S. Like, he's much more likely to play that S if he is keeping the second one on hand for later. Yeah, no 7s or 8s off of this. I didn't see something that would be a heavy vowel dump like a piece. I probably should have considered it, but instead I just keep too many vowels. Oh yeah, this is the turn when he was gracious enough to let me have a second crack, because I forgot which dictionary I was playing in. So yeah, I'll play that. And so this is an interesting turn, because he does not play this. I was wondering what kind of tile he would be keeping out of that, but it seems like he didn't know that Upnia actually does take an S. And actually takes an L as well, I believe. So he plays it, but keeps the S, probably thinking that it's already pluralized. But let's take a look at this, because I feel like there's another spelling in there somewhere. Oh yeah, that's the spelling I was thinking of. It's actually with fewer vowels. Upnia, Upniak. And that is, of course, just like... it's basically like apnea. It's a breathing-related word. Yeah, Wireman I saw immediately. I wasn't completely confident. I also didn't see it in that better 83-point position. I played it down here instead. For some reason, I just blanked on a paver as a spot. I feel like this is not only higher scoring, but actually much better positionally. Except for stuff like the K, the N is not going to be hit too hard with something coming down through the triple. And the top right is also not substantially opened. And it also closes off the lane that I did wind up using. Earlier we saw Manwise as suggested in chat after I played that turn, and that's one that I just didn't see. Interestingly enough, Manwise, I believe, would be the valid word in Dirac that looks like wise man. So that's a very good one to remember. It reminds me of Manrope as well, actually. So, for example, if you try to anagram wise man, the only thing in there is Manwise. And yeah, that's just one of those that's a very good one to know in terms of dodging a potential phony. Lots of spots for things like womanize. Just didn't really even think about that. Air women, fancy but kind of positionally bad. Oh, look at this Mayoid. That would have been a good play. Instead, we saw Diary down here. And yeah, unfortunately, Meng, that's just slightly off in terms of tiles. However, there are some pretty interesting plays that are possible, I think. So, very close to something valid. You would have to imagine that perhaps the N is a blank and that you have an additional tile to play through. So you're not too far off the mark. Out-eaten, I think I just missed, because yeah, I was sitting on so many vowels that I just didn't consider even looking for out-eaten. Oddly enough, out-eaten would have been possible with this positioning of Wireman, but not the alternative one that would have made Paver. So yeah, if I had just slowed down and considered that with so many vowels, the blank must be a bingo. Must be a consonant, rather. I should have seen it, because there are, as I said, so few words that actually have 5 vowels out of 7 or 8 letters. There just isn't that much of a set. I definitely would have seen this set of vowels before and considered to playing out-eaten, and so this was just a case of playing too quickly before I had considered what I was sitting on. And so, yeah, not much to say about that, except you'll notice that my opponent actually didn't miss the Joram spot, or maybe he didn't want to put the J next to the double like that. I can see why he would find that's not worth the extra 11 points. Major, yeah, again, he would have thought perhaps that dangling this as well as this would not have been worthwhile, so a J play in this position actually does limit me quite a bit. And so I remember this turn now, I was kind of juggling these different possibilities to see what would be the right trade-off between points and leave. Notice that the choice to keep the G or keep the B are actually very close, even though the B, keeping it would score slightly less, but this was something that was suggested in chat earlier by Tactics47, and you can see how closely they evaluate, both at about 60, so I think it's one of those that does kind of depend on the shape of the board and what you're comfortable playing with, but I think it's quite true that both G and B are clunkier bingo-wise than people realize, at least at the sort of intermediate level. That was clearly going to be the position for whatever I did, though, so looks like we had a miss here from my opponent, missing both Amritas and Amateurs. But, you know, Amateur after I had thought, oh, okay, the U is totally safe in that position. I don't expect anything to go down there. The U, even if you do have something there, it is just difficult to visualize. So that's the rack where he goes with Ramentas. If he doesn't play Ramentas, I wonder if he spots one of the words that are actually valid. Because he's right that he has something when you look at this kind of rack. It's just that something amateurs and amritas, just because of the letter order, it can be hard to spot when you're just unscrambling in your head. And so we'll see if there's anything that's going to go down here. Meng, one thing we should check is that you can't actually go around menging things, at least in the Collins Scrabble word dictionary. That's going to be a good one to remember, perhaps. Don't know if there's going to be a good related search on that. Oh, I guess not. I think the related search just looks at the definitions once again. Yeah, for anybody here who's not aware, Der Yogurt Hose goes by Meng in Mario Maker and some other places, so that's what we're getting at there. So, okay, Axe I was happy with so long as my opponent doesn't kill me with something here. I was considering Extra. As we can see, they do evaluate similarly, so it's just a matter of positionally, am I still trying to go for a bingo on a very consonant-heavy pool? Like, I'm looking at this, I'm keeping 3 consonants, you have a 1 to 2 ratio of consonants in the bag, you have a consonant here to play through. I'm probably not as close to a bingo as I think I am, or think I could be. So maybe going safe there would have been nice, but I am behind at this point, so I think the thinking here was to keep it volatile. And yeah, lots of stuff that my opponent can do, and he goes with Horrier rather than Inheritor, which I think if he noticed that he was looking at a pool with 12 vowels and 30 consonants, given the choice, he would have chosen Inheritor to keep the A, because we are both at risk of massive consonant trouble. And he has it slightly worse than I do, actually, from his view of what's going on in the bag at this point. Oh, you know what? I completely forgot to put up the screen that would actually show you the evaluation. All that time I was talking, and I didn't actually show you the tile values. So, yeah, let me scroll through this again quickly, just so we can display some of this stuff on screen. But yeah, so this was the miss over here. Yeah, we were looking at some of the score values over here. Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't realize that I didn't actually have the display going on the stream. But luckily, we weren't looking at too many things that were kind of about equity comparison, other than some plays like this. Yeah, this is the comparison I was looking at earlier, was just Fib and Fig, both evaluating at about 60. But that's the only thing that was kind of really close that made the numbers matter that much. And yeah, so you can see basically an equivalent play here, but you have to play around the bag at this point. Azo I was very happy with. I think that's correct. No, I would not have done that, because that's vulnerable to an E lane, and vulnerable to a bunch of stuff going down here. I think that's clearly the play I want. I think Azo is absolutely right. I was concerned about blocking off this lane, but if you just have a consonant start, a lot of things still go there. But I was still aware that I was likely to be drawing into a very consonant-heavy situation. And so does my opponent, for that matter. He's absolutely stuffed. And so, yeah, he does go for a play all consonants under the J. Interesting that he decides to spend the S I think, though, for anything decent there, you do have to spend the S. Like, you can't just spend something other and spend a T here and still keep the S at the end of that. I don't think there's anything that would work with the kind of tiles we were looking at. So this is a play where I decided to exchange GKQ. That evaluates very well, although at this point I'm worried about how closed the board is and that I'm still drawing into even more consonants. But I was thinking at this point that being stuck with a Q plus a bunch of incompatible bingo tiles is a bit of an issue. And tactics, I'm glad that you were still able to follow the action, even when I wasn't able to show off the numbers on the visual display. I mean, it's partly for, you know, my record as well, that once this becomes very deeply buried in my own play log, I would be able to easily consult the video if I wanted to look at anything. And yeah, I do hope the text is readable as well. I do know that things like the tile pool and the notes in the analyzer are probably extremely small text at the kind of resolution where I'm broadcasting, so if you let me know if there are any issues with that. I did already kind of increase the overall text size on my streaming display. I run everything at about 25% bigger than when I'm playing Woogles in a standard setting, I guess. Frivole, if you're in for some of that frivolity, is actually not too bad, but in general, he's just going to try to play off the V somewhere. I'm still sitting on way too many consonants here. Wag is suggested. Grow, even though that doesn't hit anything interesting. I don't think I would have done that. That blocks off this idea. What did I even do? Wed, okay. Risky play for me there in terms of all the stuff it opens up. But I'm holding bingo tiles, so I am trying to build something. I'm trying to give myself a second lane. That's the kind of thing, though, that against a wrong kind of rack is just a game-losing mistake. Like, if he has quids... If he has S or blank for a massive Q play, I just get absolutely punished. You have a custom user style to change the font on Woogles to avoid squinting? Yeah. Because this is a very information-dense game in so many ways. I keep thinking that in some ways I would have an easier time following my opponents if I have a bit of a columnar scorecard, because when I'm playing over the board, I find that I have a bunch of visualization habits, I guess, when it comes to understanding what my pace is relative to my opponent's pace, in terms of whether it looks like they're scoring lower than average to set up for something. I find that when I'm playing online here, that while in some ways having all of the plays in racks and sequence gives you a ton of information to work with, that not having the columnar display actually throws off my situational awareness of my opponent somewhat, when it comes to just sort of seeing a general pattern of what they've been doing over the past 2 or 3 turns. And also just seeing if I'm, you know, kind of pacing myself well. So yeah, I did see some potential 7s, or maybe even 8s, that would not go on this board. But playing off 2 consonants is the name of the game here. Got a hog for 19, that's not much worse score-wise than some of the other options that score a bit over 20. And so the thinking here is entirely, okay, this top part is blocked, I'm going 100% for this lane. And if I'm going 100% for this lane, the tile I want to keep is D. And that turned out to be absolutely the right decision. Notice that the evaluator actually likes quid. Equid would not have blocked credits either. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those turns where I think my opponent's in a very difficult situation where he wants to get rid of the Q at all costs. And there aren't really any better places to do it. That if you look at the queue, you get quid and equid here. Score over 30, which keeps him a comfortable distance ahead. Evaluates in the sort of 35 to 40 zone as well. And after that, there are no queue plays until quip for 16 down here, which has some obvious issues. Q in second position. Yeah, when you've got S blank still unseen. I mean, there are no more U's still unseen at least, but when you have S blank still unseen, you can get a little bit paranoid. It's probably not that bad, actually. Given that you would need to use a blank for sure, I think. Like, if you're looking at the pool at this point, the only thing that would not use a blank would be something like Niqab, like NIQ-AB. I mean, you'd probably be paranoid about the Q dangling there regardless, but it's safe from most threats other than forcing your opponent to spend a blank. Almost certainly as a U, unless you want to do like SUQ here. Yeah, no, like the only thing that I can think of that would be a problem is... no, you would have Niqab, you would also have Trank. So I guess if you're thinking about Trank as fairly high probability, then... yeah, there are a couple of reasons you might not want to go there. But this stuff down here, though, feels much more dangerous when you're playing against a pool that still has S-blank in it. But with a 20-point difference until you get down to stuff like this, that is a tough choice. Because let's say you're going down to quid here, right? Like, I guess the thinking is that even if you do have an S-play here, like, he's a player who is ahead. An S-play here scores 40-ish, and I scored 44, I think, when I finally played off of it. So I think the idea is that even if I had something here, I would only keep pace with a 30-point play, 34-point play of quid. So if he's counting on this to mostly close off this position, because, you know, it would be crazy to end something with an I in this late position, then he's sort of thinking that as the player who's 50 points ahead, he can afford to do that because this doesn't actually give me enough of a catch-up, right? But what he's not counting on is that I would actually have a bingo that fits. Like, that's just a sort of wild worst-case outcome, absolute worst-case outcome for that play, that not only do I have the bingo here, but then I draw the S afterwards to step on that. Because if only one of those events happen, then I'm okay. Then he's okay, rather. Like, if I played a bingo and he picks up S, he's fine. If I played a bingo... Sorry, if I don't play a bingo, but I have S or blank to use here for, say, 40-something points, he's also going to be fine. So, maybe given the position here... I mean, this ends up being a losing play, I think, because of the incredible volatility that it introduces. But you can kind of see why you would be reasoning your way to that when, you know, you really, really want to get rid of the Q, and the next to best Q play isn't anywhere close, and is also kind of risky in its own way. So this is kind of a lesson in volatility right here. That's, you know, he's basically losing to a worst-case outcome where both spots go to me. And so, yeah, credits. Look at that, even credits, keeping the blank. Well, I mean, obviously the engine is way overvaluing the blank. There's no way the blank is worth that much on this board at this late stage, if you don't play it, obviously, so... But yeah, there's one play there, and it's an obvious one. And other than trying to open up and fish towards something at this point, I don't think there's anything for him to do. Like, he knows with 3 in the bag that this is going to be trouble. And if he goes for a blocking play, that might be interesting. Because if he does something that would say... Well, here's the issue, right? There actually aren't that many tiles you can use to block. I don't think he has any tiles that block, because if you look at the 3 tile plays that he can potentially do, or even a 2 tile plays, everything is still vulnerable to going E and then going S. So he has no block, he just has to try to draw into S himself out of the 3 unseen tiles in the bag, which at this point are what? It's actually going to be NNK in the bag. NNK in the bag, wow. So, interestingly enough, setting up for Equid myself is not terrible, except, of course, I would not really have much here afterwards, because we don't have access to ST or anything like that. No, I think this is much better. I go for points at this point. Especially, you know, as we're pushing our way down on the clock. So, still a lot of high point plays here with the Equid's spot, but at this point, I think I'm able to stay ahead of anything. We'd have to quackle that to be sure, I think, but I think I'm okay, like I'm in the clear at this point in the game. Brink is clearly to play, and he's not going to go for it, actually. But, okay, no, they're equivalent. 21 and 21, and neither of them affect what I'm going to do with the final T, I don't think. Because hot is going to be the hot spot. So yeah, 2 wins today. Very courteous, once again, of my opponent to let me get away with VIAE in this game when I forgot which book I was playing in. A couple of misses, a couple of failed challenges, lots of suboptimality from everybody, really. Well, that's how it goes sometimes when you're playing stuff like this. And so, yeah, thanks again for the GG. So that's going to be it for this stream. I'm glad we actually managed to take the time to go over everything, so I will likely be forwarding you off to the only Scrabble stream that is available at this hour, which is going to be Josh's. So Josh, or Axter's Hypo, did manage to complete the blindfold Scrabble challenge, where he beat the bot on Wiggles in blindfold mode after many, many days worth of attempts, so I'm sure he's just kicking back and having a great time beating everybody else's standard way, insofar as he ever plays anything standard. So we'll probably push you over there in just a moment. Thank you once again, everybody, for joining me for this stream, and we'll be back for more soon enough, I hope. It's going to be back to Mario Maker for the next few streams, but I'm trying to find some kind of extra slot for Scrabble to do something at a bit of a different pace, like Blitz games or something. It probably won't be at the time that the Blitz Club now runs, but I'll see if I can make something like that happen. Regardless, thank you once again for joining me, and thanks for watching. We'll send you on in just a moment, and enjoy more Scrabble. Have a good evening, good night, wherever you are, and fare thee well.